Hello, I hope we can do this in English. I think everybody can understand us as well. It's a great honor to have you here today. Thanks so much for coming as well. And we've prepared a couple of questions that the audience and also the team and also the team members that couldn't be there today have sent in. So the first most important question, have you ever been in Munich before?
No, this is actually my first time ever in Munich. It's not my first time in Germany. It just so happens that the first ever junior tournament that I played outside of Asia was in Germany. And it was at Cologne in Germany. That's where I won my first ever European junior event. This is like 22 years back now. I was 15 years old at the time. First time traveling to Europe at that time as well. So Germany is like my first international win ever. But Munich is the first time. Mohit has been telling me to come here for the last few years, and it just so hasn't happened. But finally, I think thanks to the football now tomorrow, Munich has brought me here. So I'm really, really happy to be here, and hopefully I will get to see the city a little bit more over the next couple of days.
Well, we hope that you'll be in Munich a couple of times after you've seen the city. And that's, I read that the first tournament you played here was 2002. Was it a Pioneer or?
No, it was. So the Pioneer was I think actually 2003, and I think the 2002 one, the one that I won first, was the German Junior Open in Cologne. And then the Pioneer I played the next year when I was 16, but I played the under 19s because I wanted like better matches before the Dutch Junior Open. So I played the under 19s. I did well. I didn't win it though, but it was a really, really good experience.
So the next question that we had is, how did you start squash? I read that you used to play badminton before you got into squash.
Yes, that's correct. So I actually played badminton quite seriously till I was about 8 years old. So my parents and me, we were in a city down south in India called Chennai, which is where I live with my wife as well right now. But we were in Chennai at that time, and I used to play a lot of badminton. And then we moved to Calcutta, which is in the east, which is where I was born originally, but we moved around. And when I moved to Calcutta, we didn't have access to badminton courts. And my father used to play squash. So it was kind of like a natural thing that, okay, I don't have access to badminton courts, so let me try playing squash. So squash happened that way, and I used to play cricket, which is like a religion in India, quite seriously as well till I was 13. But then I had to kind of choose at about 13 because doing the studying in school as well as through sports was getting impossible, and I just enjoyed being on the squash court a lot at that time, and I still do, and that's why squash happened.
I think that's a really, really nice story because you was always into sports and the passion was still there. Even if it's now squash, it turned out to be the better choice for you. The next question is, what is life as a pro squash player for you? Like, how does your day start usually when you prepare for an upcoming event? How's a typical day?
So I think we have like, it's slightly different when it's the off season, which is kind of like the summer, because you have a lot more time to prepare, and you kind of put your body through a lot of things that you possibly don't want to, but there's a lot of pain. But it's like putting money into the bank and hoping that it will mature when the season starts. So I think during those times we are doing pretty much like 3 sessions a day. I'm not, although I would like to be, I'm not the earliest riser in the world. So I kind of start my sessions around like 9:30ish. There are some guys who do it earlier, but I kind of start at 9:30. I do like one squash session from like 9:30, 10 to like 11, 11:30, which is more of like a technical session. So you're working on like specific things which you feel you need to improve on, going into the new season. And then you do like a really, really hard physical session that could be, especially in the summer, if you're in a place which gives you the opportunity to kind of do things outside. There could be stuff which is outside, could be on the track, could be hill sprints, which is the worst session ever. Or it could be inside the gym where you're trying to get stronger and doing stuff on the bike and the rower and things like that, interval sessions. And then you go back and do another squash session in the evening, which is a harder one, which is kind of a lot more pressure stuff and it's a lot harder. And those are like the squash things. In between all of that, you try and find the time to eat as well as you can and find that nap time as often as you can, because trust me, you need it, because the body takes a big hit. And then as soon as you finish the day, you want to just eat and you want to sleep because you know that the next day is going to be harder. So I think this is what happens generally during the off season. I think during the season, as a professional, it's more about just managing your schedule because you're traveling so much, going through so many different time zones. So you've got to be aware of how your body is feeling at different points in time. So I think the key to producing during the season consistently is not just the amount of work you put in, but also being smart about when to back off and when to kind of push yourself. Prevent injuries. Also, being physically and mentally jaded. If your dad is not going to produce at the highest level, and I think it's important to kind of manage your life as well. When you're, like 1 week you're in New York and then you come back home for and home is India, so come back home for 10 days and then go back to Chicago and then you're going to London straight from there and then coming back home for another week and then going back to Laguna in Egypt for a week. So it's really, really manic, and you're living out of a suitcase, out of hotel rooms. So the time that you spend even 3-4 days at home in your own bed is like gold dust. You love it. So I think it's difficult. Getting on the flights now is almost like getting into a car, going somewhere. It's weird. But I think managing your life is almost as important as just managing your squash as well. But you have to try and find a way to enjoy it, because if you don't, it's going to be very difficult to kind of continually do it.
And since you said you always fly back home, that's also a really long flight, depending on where you played before. Is that even though you have to take a long flight, a real recovery for you?
I think it's a trade-off, right? So you're going to have to kind of, sometimes we stay on if there's a week in between, we kind of stay on. But again, you have to see mentally how you're feeling. Like my coach who passed away now, Michael Wilstrop, used to say, you could be physically injured and you could find a way to get over it. But if you're mentally injured in the sense that you're sad or depressed about something, then you're going to find it very difficult to kind of play really well. So I think it all depends on your mood at the time. If you feel like you really need to go home, then even taking a 14-hour flight is worth it. But if you're feeling alright and feeling fresh and you feel like you like the city or whatever and you can stay there, then it's probably better physically to stay in that city and play the next tournament for sure.
And also staying on that topic, how do you manage family and being a pro athlete? That has to be hard as well, right?
I think the credit for managing family and being in your career, so to say, cannot be taken by me even one bit. I think it has to be taken by your family. They are the ones who have to kind of give up a lot of the time that they should have with me. And again, I don't want to use the word sacrifice. I think these are choices that we make as individuals and as a group, as a family. But I think they are the ones who are the most accommodating. They are the ones who understand, what it takes to be able to produce at the highest level. And they are the ones who sacrifice that time. Of course, it's difficult for us as well as individuals because we're away and we want to be home and we don't want to miss, birthdays and anniversaries and just being at home and things like that, But I think it's tougher for them, and you need to have a family which is supportive and is constantly encouraging you to do the things that you need to do, and not just being, not just saying yes for everything. It's also a question of being real and kind of telling you the things that maybe you're doing something wrong or doing something right. It's important to have people close to you in your inner circle with that kind of mindset as well, and what will help you grow, not just as a player, but also as a person?
It's a really wonderful answer. Now we're getting back to the squash part again. Do you have like a special warm-up routine to do before an important match? Is it like always the same? Is it different?
So I think this is something that I've always like believed in my entire career. Whatever I do in practice is what is going to happen in a match. So even like something as small as like a wristband, right? Like I would never wear a new wristband to a match. Like I would always wear, if let's say I got new wristbands from Head, for example, like one sponsor, right? I would definitely wear that particular wristband in practice once to feel, okay, I'm comfortable with this to be able to do it in a match. So warm up, the same warm up that I do for practice every single day is what I do in a match. Like the intensity that I have to bring to practice every single day is the intensity that is going to be matched in a match. Right? So whatever you do in a match, you can't just expect that if you don't do it in practice, it's just suddenly going to like show up in a match. Right? Whatever you want to happen in a match, you have to practice in practice. Right? So someone like Rafa Nadal, for example, right? Like he said, you know, if I'm playing at an intensity of like 10 on 10 in matches, I'm actually playing at an intensity of like 20 on 10 in practice. So whatever we do in practice is a lot harder than what we actually do in a match. Right? So the only thing to deal with in a match is there is stress. Right? There is the stress of winning or losing, right? And the situation and the circumstance. Yeah, so that is something that you cannot replicate in practice no matter what you do. But other than that, you can replicate and make it a lot harder in practice so that it becomes a lot easier in a match.
So this thing you do warm up like, is it as hard as a match, or do you go start slow and then get to the intensity?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to kill yourself before you go into the match, right? You have to say something. But yeah, I think I think everyone has a different set of things that they do to get their body going. Again, it's a trial and error thing, which you do in practice to figure out, you know, what is the ideal amount of time and ideal kind of set of exercises or combination of exercises that you do in your warm-up, which gets you playing the best you can. And that's, you kind of have to practice that and see what works. So I think it's, for me, like, there's a lot of like activation work and mobility work to get my body going. I do a little bit of like quick field work as well, but for me, like, thankfully I've always been like pretty quick around the court. So for me, like, it's more about just activating my muscles where the power comes in. For that to kind of fire, if that's firing well, then generally it can start pretty alright. But again, it's different for different people, and you kind of have to understand that for yourself by doing it at different points in time.
What about mental preparation for the match?
So the mental preparation is probably as important, if not more, than actually the physical stuff that we do. And I won't go on a lot about it, but I'll just say one thing, and this is something that I've learned from James Wittstrop. I don't know if you know, but he's obviously one of the legends. He told me that, you know, when everyone visualizes about, you know, how they want to play and what you want to do, and he asked me once, like, you know, what are you visualizing about? And I told him I'm visualizing about, you know, if the ball is in a certain area of the court, what am I going to do? And I'm visualizing like what my opponent is going to do if I put the ball in certain areas. And I'm visualizing like, you know, winning the points and doing it well and things like that. And then he said, maybe try to visualize everything negative that could happen, like anything under the sun, right? Like you getting injured, the referee giving you every wrong decision, whatever it can happen. And I was like, but why? Am I not going to just feel bad about myself if I do that? And he's like, you might feel bad about yourself at the time when you're thinking about it, but if those negative things happen in a match, you will be prepared because you visualized your responses for it. Right? So if things are going really well, even if you've not visualized it, your body will be in a state of flow and you will do it. But if it's going negatively, then you're going to go into this mode of being really anxious and start stressing really hard. Right? That's just a norm because it's something which is not going the way you want it to go. But if you visualize that in your head before and you've thought of responses of it, it's not that you're going to always come out on the right side of it, but you're going to be better prepared for it. So I think visualizing all the negative things that can go wrong is a great idea, and it's definitely helped me over the last couple of years to really like deal with a lot of situations which I probably didn't deal with as well before.
That's really a new perspective that I didn't think actually it could be such an important thing. But staying on the topic of negative things, over the years, players have always dealt with referees. How did you get along with the referees when you were on tour?
Well, I've never got a fine from PSA, so I think I've done well.
It's not like a Jonathan Power.
So it's definitely not a Jonathan Power. Actually, there was this one player from Italy, his name was Davide Bianchetti. He retired about 6-7 years back, and when he was retiring, the joke of the tour was that the PSA is going to go bankrupt because he was the one giving in all the money through all the fines. And he actually played over the World Championships in Rotterdam a long time back now, and he got caught that match against me. And like literally he was arguing with the ref, and I'm like, David, why are you arguing, man? Like it's a simple decision. So no, man, I don't want to play anymore. Let me just argue. So in general, I think I've been pretty alright with the refs. Of course, there have been times when I felt like the refs have no idea, which I think every player goes through. But refereeing is it's a thankless job. Like
if you do refereeing, it's kind of a little bit better.
Yeah, if you do it well, no one talks about you, so no one cares. And if you do it badly, everyone talks about you. So it's a bit like a goalkeeper in football. Like you could have 89 minutes and 56 seconds of perfection, and if you have 4 seconds of imperfection, everyone's going to talk about you. So I think it's a thankless job, but I think overall I've been pretty alright with it.
And when you're training, like what percentage would you say do you feel good with the training and like kind of good days, bad days? What would you say is a right percentage? It's kind of like an important question for all the young ones also playing here, and when you always feel so frustrated while training.
I think this is a tough one. I think the first thing is recognition that you have to accept that every day is not going to be the same, right? And also, I think a lot of the times the frustrations are also coming from things that we are trying to achieve and trying to like get better, and you're trying to get things better because you feel you're not as good at that, or you don't have that shot or pattern of play in like your armory or arsenal. Right? So if you don't have that, it is going to take time for you to be able to consistently execute that successfully. And whenever you're trying to kind of improve something, there is going to be that gestation period or that time which is going to take to get to that point. And in that process, you have to accept that it's not going to be perfect every single time. Right? So in terms of a spread, I think it's very difficult to say. I think when you're in that like stage where you feel everything is absolutely perfect, you're probably talking like 2-3 days in a year, right? Where everything is perfect, right? That's very rare, right? Then there's going to be days where it's like absolutely useless, right? You're probably saying like maybe like 10% of the year, and then you're somewhere in the middle for the rest of the part, right? The idea is that you have to try and raise like your base level, which is your average level. So like when you're playing like 70-75% of what you're capable of to a higher level, right? So if you can raise that, then that automatically makes it, it automatically makes you a better player every day, right? And I also think, again, going back to like an anecdote from one of the people who I really watched a lot. He's not a squash player, but he's a tennis player, Andre Agassi. Right? He writes in his book Open that he always chased perfection. Right? He always, every shot that he hit, he wanted it to be perfect. Right? And he said that was his biggest mistake. Right? He said that when he started, Brad Gilbert, his coach, right? He started working with him. Brad Gilbert told him that what you should try to achieve is not perfection. But what you try to achieve is that every shot just needs to be better than what the other person is throwing at you. And that is good enough. Because it's like if you try and chase perfection at every shot, you're going to be like upset every single time. Right? So you're going to get frustrated and it's going to be a downward spiral. But if you focus on just trying to get the shot better than the other person on every shot, then it's going to add up and you're going to end up winning. So I think that's a good way to look at it. I'm not saying don't try to be perfect. Of course, you want to chase excellence, you want to be perfect, but at the same time, you almost have to be kind to yourself. Say that that you can't be perfect every single time. No one is. Not the best players in the world are. Right? So, let's say Ali Farah right now, right? He's world number one. Right? If you watch him play, of course he's unbelievable. But is he hitting every single shot exactly where he wants it every single time? No, he's not. Right? Ali will say the same thing. Right? So if he's not able to do it, so be kind to yourself. Right? You just have to make sure that you get it good enough so that you can stay in the rally for the next shot and try and win it the next shot. So I think that's the kind of thought process you need to have, that you will always have to find a way.
Spending so much time on tour, obviously you didn't always travel with family, so who did you get along on tour? Like, who was your closest friend there, or in which groups of...
obviously the Indian players who are there, there's Ramit Tandon and Anand Sandhu, they're two of my best friends in life. But I think other than that, James Willstrop, I think both of us, we go back a long way now. I've trained with him. His father obviously has made me the player I am today. It was almost like when I went to Pontefract in England, where they train. Malcolm was like the person sitting on top. So in Pontefract we have two courts and he sits on top. Well, he used to, not anymore unfortunately. He used to sit on top and used to kind of give instructions. And he was like the theory of what he wanted you to do, and James was the practical demonstration of that theory. So I've learned a lot from him. Spent a lot of hotel rooms. We love food, so we always look at restaurants when we go to a new city, that where we're going to eat. So he's obviously someone who's very close. I think someone who I've also spent a lot of time with is Mohammed and Shorbagi. I think both of us have spent a lot of time together on tour. We played a lot of matches against each other as well. He's a good guy at heart, even though sometimes on court he doesn't look the nicest guy. Yeah, he doesn't look the nicest guy, but he's a good guy. And I think someone from Germany, actually, Simon Rosner. We grew up with juniors together. We played a lot of matches against each other. We spent a lot of time on tour together, playing obviously the same tournaments, so we got along really well. And then he's not been on tour for a while, but Rami Ashur, him and me again, like Simon as well. Like we all played juniors at the same time, so we know each other for a very, very long time. So I think Rami as well, great guy, absolute genius. So whenever you speak to him, you think like, on what level is he thinking at? But great guy, and some very, very good times with him as well.
And staying on the topic of your opponents, like, what was the hardest match you played, or the person you had the most difficulties beating on court?
I think the most difficulty beating is every match that I lost, because I lost. But if I had to pick, I think I'd pick two players, and they would be Kareem Darwish and Gregory Gaultier. I think, yes, and also and the reason I say it is both of them, the first two times that I played them, I was obviously young and I was coming up, but the first two times that I played them, I remember very clearly, I literally didn't know where the ball was going. I was like, what is going on? And I lost both those matches against both of them in 20-25 minutes. I was absolutely decimated. They were two players, and at the same time I played people like John White, Peter Nicol, James Willstrop, all these guys, Amir Shamana, all of them, Rami, everyone, right? But I think these two players, it just felt that if you were not close to their level, squash-wise, they could destroy you. And they would have no mercy. They would destroy you and take you and throw you out. It was like that. Right? So the first two, literally destroy you. So the first two times that I played them, it was like a lesson, absolute lesson. Of course, later on, I kind of started getting better and like got closer to them. But I think just the severity of their squash was so high that like I remember coming off court thinking, my God, there's no way to go here. So I think those two were probably the hardest, I would say.
Well, yeah, pretty hard matches, I imagine, as well. And after a really successful squash career, you decided actually to retire this year. Do you have any retirement plans for now? What's the next in your life? What's going on?
So yeah, I mean, I retired from professional squash now. It's been 3-4 months. I'm starting to like understand what normal life is. But I still do want to play for India a little bit more. I think my body still has enough in it to give for like 3-4 weeks in a year. Obviously, PSA takes like 20-25 weeks of hard stuff, and that maybe the body won't take. You never know. I might just come back because I miss it too much. In terms. Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I think in terms of retirement plans, I do want to stay connected with sport. I think, like you said at the very outset, sport has been like part of my like DNA ever since I can remember. I've always loved to play. I think squash has given me a lot. I want to do whatever I can to help squash in general. But obviously back home in India, I want to kind of help kind of create the next generation, both at a micro level as well as a macro level, that create like more access to courts and better infrastructure in terms of like coaching and things like that. Because there's a lot of talent in India, but right now to really become a top player, you can't stay in India because the coaches are not equipped enough and knowledgeable enough and don't have the necessary exposure to be able to produce players who are going to make top 20, top 30 in the world. So I think that's where I kind of want to help, make that ecosystem a little bit better in my own small way in India. And hopefully, like Mohan said, 2036 Olympics might be in India. So I would love to be a part of that. Actually, the gold medalist the first Olympic gold medalist that he was talking about, he's a shooter. His name is Unveiled. Spent a lot of time in Germany as well. And I'm very good friends with him. And I was joking with him that, because we were at the IOC session last year, and I was joking with him, telling him that, if India does get the 2036 Olympics, you should head the organizing committee and here on the study. Right? Because it requires a lot of detail, right? And I think, obviously coming from a sport of shooting, you need an immense amount of detail. I think I've kind of built my career around taking care of the small details. So I think if given the opportunity, it would be great to be a part of that process and to create systems and an environment back home in India which would produce champions on the world stage and make India a superpower in world sport. So hopefully one day.
Oh yes, that's a really great vision, and also if they have you in India and helping them, I think that's also going to send a really good message to all the kids that are playing there, and hopefully with a better infrastructure someday we will see not Egypt but India at the top of the PSA. So before we run completely out of time, I would like to ask you if you have any questions that haven't been asked yet.
From which level in the world ranking do you think a squash player can live for his life, for his expenses? I mean, it's expensive to travel by planes, or you need sponsors or something. And what do you think is a level top 100, under top 100, you can live from the sport, or what do you think?
So I think if you're around, like the top 50, top 60 level, you can live from the sport. But I don't think, personally, I think every country is slightly different because the cost of living in different countries is different. But I think if you want to save money for later on in life and invest and live a comfortable life, to be really realistic, I think you have to be top 20 in the world right now. And this is where I'm the men's PSA president right now, and we are trying very hard to kind of shift that benchmark towards, where it's like top 20, 25 maybe right now. We probably pushed it to about 25 right now, since when we started about 2 years back. We're trying to push it to like top 50. The plan is that over the next 5 to 8 years, if we can push that to the top 100, where for both the men and the women, then we would have achieved something pretty substantial, because the shift from like the top 5 and then the top 10 to the top 20 has taken a long time. But I think where we are at this point, with squash getting into the Olympics in LA 28, which is a big day for squash and a big inflection point, and a lot more investment coming in as well into the PSA. I think we are at a point where we can make a substantial jump, and we are working very hard to market the sport a bit better, and hopefully, from this coming season, there is going to be a little bit more focus on kind of elevating players as superstars and assets, so that people can identify with the sport through individuals and not just as a sport, if that makes sense. And hopefully that will help get more money into the sport, and push that top 25 to a top 30, 35 over the next year or 2 years, and then top 50, and then the idea is to get into the top 100 as of now. That's the long-term plan.
Okay, so
Hi, how about the Squash Masters series? So Masters over 25, are you aware of, or you plan something like the upcoming World Masters in Amsterdam?
Are you asking if I'm going to play it?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, no.
Not now, I don't know, you enjoy family time, your other stuff, but maybe in a few years. You guys might to maybe join some of those Masters events?
As of now, if you ask me, I'd say no. I'd say right now, if I had to play, like I said, I still want to play a few things for India. So we have the next two big ones for us is the Asian Games and the Commonwealth Games, which is in 2026. So that's what's on my mind, and if I can make it to the 28 Olympics, then that would be great for sure. But yeah, if you ask me, I've always said that once I finish playing, I will still play because I love the game. I still go on court, and even if I do a solo session for an hour, I feel like, oh, this is brilliant, right? But to compete and to competitively do that, I've always said that I wouldn't, but you never know, you never know. Because I just always felt like once I finish playing competitively, I would like to play something else a bit more seriously. But yeah, you never know, maybe I will be there, but as of now, if you ask me, I would say no. But yeah, I think it's the Masters, and even the juniors and stuff, I think they're a great kind of example of how we can get more people playing the game at different levels of the sport. And I think the World Squash Federation is obviously the one who handles the Masters events and the juniors as well. The World Juniors actually starting next week. This week actually, sorry, in Houston for the first time in America. So I think those are very, very important cogs in the full system of squash around the world, because without these two, I don't think the professional game exists. So I think it's very important to take care of these level of players, the clubs in general. I mean, yesterday, for example, at Wimbledon, Djokovic has given a big thing about how tennis is also suffering, where the clubs are kind of moving to paddle and pickleball and things like that. And it's very important to take care of that as well, and not just about the professional players. So I think that's really important. And of course, even if I'm not actively participating in the Masters events, I think I'm very close to a lot of people in the World Squash Federation now to kind of help them do a few things on that side as well. So hopefully I can contribute in some way, if not as an active player.
It's not that serious, just 10%. It's, come together, collaboration, parties.
Yeah. I know. Maybe.
It's fun.
Yeah, maybe, you never know. I might just show up one day and surprise everyone.
Okay, so I think last.
One more from the
So,
Germany and India, with respect to squash, have one common problem. In Germany, it is football, and India is cricket. So it's a challenge that we face, that this sport doesn't get that much of attention that it's supposed to. Do you see that changing in India in the near future?
I think it would be foolhardy for me to think that cricket is going to get displaced in India or football is going to get displaced in Germany. I don't think that's happening. I think they're preeminent sports in both the countries. But I do think, just because there's one sport which is preeminent doesn't mean that, the other sports not flourish. I think a good example for that in India is badminton. What we've done in badminton over the last 6 to 10 years has been brilliant. We have very good shots at a couple of medals in the Olympics this year, which is brilliant. And I'm sure Germany has a few other sports as well which do well. So I think it's very easy for everyone connected with the sport to think that okay, cricket is huge in India, so we're not going to get anywhere, and then kind of almost complain about it. I think we have to find ways to organically grow the sport as much as possible, and kind of nurture the talent that already exists as well, because there is a lot of talent. There are a lot of kids playing. Like to give you an example, when I played juniors 30 years back, there used to be in each age category there used to be draws of 16 players, right? And this is in the boys. In the girls, there used to be like draws of 8, and some age categories had to be merged together. Today, in the junior nationals in India, we have draws of 128 plus qualifying of another 64. Right? So we've obviously come a long way in terms of the numbers. Now the key is we have the quantity to a certain extent, but we need to improve the quality in that quantity, and that's very important to do. So I think that's where we need to kind of put our heads together and do the best we can to generate more champions from wherever we are. So,
In your post-retirement, I wish you all the best in influencing this part.
Hopefully, yes.
So the question is related to everybody. Today, in most of the sports, you watch also mid-30s, players are able to really maintain themselves and do that. You are the best example for that. What's the secret? How is it that today that's able to happen much more?
I mean, I think a lot of credit for that has to go to sports science and like the physios that we have, the physical trainers that we have. The way we train is a lot more scientific, and everything that we do is aimed towards putting less stress on the joints in the body. So to give you an example, everything that I do in the gym, right? Or squash is a very high impact sport for like the body, because we're always moving around. That's why we have knee, hip, back injuries, right? So everything that we do, we try to make sure that we are taking the impact off as much as possible. That's why doing things on like the bike and the road is such a good idea, because you're not getting any impact on the joints. It's unbelievably hard to like do stuff on it, but it's very good to kind of do those things. And then even in terms of like the number of hours that we train, right? It's obviously a lot more focused on shorter durations of time, but with higher quality. So if you read books of like Jonah Barrington or Jahangir Khan, and things, you see things and read things about them training like 8 hours a day and things like that. There is no player in the world today who's training 8 hours a day. Right? It's all about finding the right amount of time. It's more like 4 or 5 hours, but doing high quality in those 4 or 5 hours. Right? So we're trying to protect our bodies as much as possible. We're trying to schedule tournaments as well as we can, so that the body can take it as much as possible. And then there's a lot of like physio work which goes in, releasing the body. All these things, small things add up over a period of time, and hence you're able to play. And you're right, it's not just in squash, it's in all the sports. Right? The retirement age is kind of be pushed back at least by half a decade, if not more, in the last 10 to 15 years. And that's got to do with all the work and that the people studying sport have brought to the table. So it's very close to them. And we just listen to them and act like donkeys and do whatever they want us to do.
Wishing you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. you have shared some of the lessons learned, and you told that coping up with the stress is the most important for the sportsman. And what I believe that resilience is also most important, and the competitiveness. So I would like to learn some of the great lessons from you. How you have shared the stories that you have compete with best players in the world. So how you compete with yourself? Because I have listened that you told that every shot will be the better than the previous one. So competing with yourself, where cricket is the religion in the country. So if you would like to share some of the lessons learned, it will help us.
So I think, of course cricket is big in India. I mean, we saw what happened like 3 days back on Marine Drive Sunday. It's literally like the Pope, Lord Ganesha, everyone has come down on earth. But I think as an athlete and as a player, you have to be almost ignorant of anything that happens on the outside. So you can't kind of be thinking about, cricket is so big in India, so all the recognition and fame and whatever, and the money from the extent is going to the cricketers. I don't think that is the quest. I think for you to be the best you can be, there has to be an internal desire, exclusive of the external factors, that you want to be the best you can possibly be. So once you kind of start thinking about that, and then you will constantly, there will be like this constant, it's almost like a wording in your head, right? That what do I need to do to be the best I can be? Not because I am looking for a consequence of making more money or being recognized on the street or being a higher profile athlete than a Virat Kohli, for example. Like these things are consequences which you do not think of. You're constantly just thinking of how can I be better today and then tomorrow, and finding the joy in that. If you can't find that intrinsic motivation, then it's going to be very difficult for you to do it for a very long time and to really achieve the potential that you can possibly achieve. I think that is really important, and it's not just in sport, like it's just in life, right? Just to be a better person as well. It's not about comparing yourself to someone else. You can have role models, right? But at the end of the day, you're a person, you're a unique person. You need to find every day, you need to see how can I be better tomorrow, right? And if you can find ways to keep doing that, you will be a better person and a better player and a better engineer or whatever it is that you do, right? But that's not to say that you won't make mistakes along the way. You will still make mistakes, right? But as long as the intent is right to do something to the best of your ability, you're going to learn from those mistakes and hopefully not commit them again, and then make new mistakes. And those new mistakes are going to make you grow as a person and as a player in my sense or my regard, and make me a better player. And I have no doubt in my mind that today I am a better player than what I was when I was 20 years old. Of course, it's a lot of work that I've put in, but it's also because I have learned so much along the way from all the mistakes that I've made, and because I have tried my best to be the best player I can be. I'm not worried about what someone else is doing or is someone else better than me. Of course, you're looking at like Ali's world number 1 today, right? So you want to be better than him to be world number 1, of course. But you're not seeing that, can I hit a better shot than him in this regard. You're seeing what can I do to the best of my ability to hurt him. Right? But it's always looking inwards and not outwards. And I think that's the best way to look at life, and it just gives you a lot more peace, I think, rather than thinking about all the other things in life.
So, the mantra for coping up with the mental stress.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. Yeah.
Well then, thank you.
Last one.
Okay.
And please also tell something about
Maybe you can get up here and thank you.
So let's close with some personal about you. Because in my memory when you were on the podium, 2022 for your third place in the Commonwealth, and that was an emotional moment. I don't remember the moment exactly, but it was emotional for me and retirement and so on. Will you tell us more were you thinking in this moment and why you were so happy about this success?
So I think this one, you need a little bit of background and history. So India has never won an individual Commonwealth Games squash medal ever before 22. I played my first Commonwealth Games in New Delhi in 2010, home Commonwealth Games. I wasn't supposed to win an individual medal then, but it was just a good kind of exposure to the Commonwealth Games. 2014, I made it to the semi-finals, where I lost to James Willstrop in the semi-finals, so I didn't win a medal. 2018, I was actually supposed to win a medal, like I was seeded to win a medal, but I had one of the biggest losses of my career. First match, just didn't play that well. A lot of things went the way I didn't want it to go, and I lost. And that's probably one of the times where I've been closest to kind of saying that maybe I should just stop because I'm not good enough. 2022, come 2022, there was a lot happening. We had COVID and things like that, and then to come to Birmingham, and I put in a very good body of work before that, and I knew that I had a really good chance. In the semis, unfortunately, I came up against Paul, who had 2 unbelievable weeks at the Commonwealths that year. And then to play James, who, like I said, I've pretty much learned everything from him. Spent so much time with him. And Malcolm Willstrop, his dad, he passed away the year before, so it was difficult. So I think that moment to play James in the bronze medal playoff was difficult because of everything. And then to when you talk about visualization, right? We think about how things are going to play out in your mind and in the match the next day. In no scenario did I think I was going to produce that performance that day. That is one of the best performances on a single day that I've ever produced. And to produce it on that day under kind of almost the weight of history for India against James Willstrop, and obviously with Malcolm passing away the year before, I think everything put together, and then obviously having the heartbreak of 2018, and it was almost like a 12-year kind of journey to winning that medal. I think that's why it was so big. It's definitely the most, important and cherished medal for me personally. I think the Asian Games medal that I won in 2006, which was the first again for India, is a very important medal for Indian squash, because that's the first time that squash won a medal at the Asian Games, and that kind of, helped squash gain notice in India, and the government started supporting us a lot more. But I think for me personally, with the level of the field at the Commonwealth Games, and to produce a performance like that, like James, when he speaks to me today, every time we speak about it, he says, I was actually, he's talking about himself, he says, I was actually playing well. And I remember very clearly in between games when David Campion, the English national coach, David comes to me and he says, I need James, you need to do this. And he says, I remember telling David, he's like, David, I don't know what to say, but I just have a feeling today I'm up against a brick wall. Whatever I do, nothing is going past. So he says, it was almost like I didn't believe that I could win that day because you were playing so well. So for him to say that to me, and I knew, when it finished, that I just knew that, I couldn't have done it better. Even if I had to dream it in the best possible way, it could not be that good, right? In terms of the performance that I produced. So I think everything put together was just very emotional, and I think that's the only time I've actually ever cried on a squash court. Never ever before. Whether I won, lost, I never cried on a squash court ever. So it was almost I was in my mind, I was thinking, what are you doing? How can you be crying here? But it was a very, very special moment, and I'm just glad that it happened, and I'm really happy that I managed to win at least the bronze in 22. So yeah.
So this has really been an incredible experience, and it's incredible to meet you as well, and thank you for taking the time to come to this club and talk about your experiences while on tour and also as a person. and giving such a great example for all the people that are here today. So thank you very much.
And hopefully I will come back to Europe and I can play a bit more, and then we can come back to this club and play a little bit. Yes, hopefully. Should be fun. Thank you very much, everyone.